Thanks for being here, Trevor.
Good to be here, Andrew.
Yeah. And for those of you listening that don't know who Trevor is, I'm not really going to introduce him. You should have done your homework, and you should go to the discography now and listen for about 16 hours and then hit play on this when you're done with that. So we'll just get rolling.
TrevorDunn.net. I'll just plug myself right now.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, man. How you been? How have you been spending your time? Yeah. How are you?
Well, it's been interesting. I kind of had, I was actually in Europe right before the lockdown, and kind of came into New York a little later than I wanted to, but kind of walked right into it was getting weird in Europe too, of course. So and it was also a little bit frightening to travel already. So
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I was jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, when I got to New York, because New York was kind of getting, starting to lead the race. And so it took me a while to get adjusted, and I had a housemate for a minute, but she went back to Europe like after about a week. So I just until recently I haven't really been able to get into a routine. So and my sleep has been really weird. Like I started staying up way too late. I was definitely like drinking too much and staying up late and sleeping too late. And I finally the other day I was like, man, I'm wasting too much time. This is ridiculous. So I started trying to adjust my sleep and to earlier hours, and I started practicing bass again. So last few days I've been spending about 4 hours a day on bass, just on like 2 hours on super basic technique, long tone, like basically an hour on long tones, and then an hour on arpeggios and bowing techniques, and then about 2 hours I'm working on this prelude to a Bach cello suite. And me and a couple friends we've kind of set this goal that we're going to have a Zoom concert for each other where we all play a Bach piece.
Wow.
So just as a way to kind of give ourselves a goal to push towards,
Yeah.
which has been great, because otherwise, the whole idea of trying to prepare a piece for a presentation,
right,
for an audience is huge. It's much stronger pull than if you're just sitting in your house like, yeah, I guess I'll work on this for a few minutes,
Yeah.
So but that's been great. It's been feeling good. It's I'm definitely the first couple of days I was really feeling those long tones in my left hand.
Yeah.
And then I started exercising. I started doing this. I had been running I live pretty near Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and I was running there for a while, but then, I don't know, I'm a little bit, even though I started out as kind of a skeptic when this whole thing began, I'm like on the other end of that spectrum, and I'm kind of more paranoid.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of joggers out there who aren't wearing masks and stuff, so I just kind of don't feel comfortable. So I started doing this, like, it's a 20-minute workout in my room, and it's really intense. This guy Sean T does this thing called the Insanity Workout.
Nice.
And he's got a bunch of different workouts, but there's this one that's 20 minutes, and it's just hardcore for 20 minutes straight. Like, it's brutal.
Nice.
And, it's a lot of push-ups and jumping and planks and different stuff like that. So I'm going to do that again as soon as I get off the phone with you. And then I started updating my website the other day. I had somebody refurbish it about a year ago, so it's pretty brand new.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that.
Cool.
When you did it a year ago, I saw that.
Oh, yeah. So I added a couple releases to it and updated my kind of have a page where I list books and music and movies that I'm been into, and
Nice.
then I started this Q&A thing where people can send me questions, and I answer them. And a lot of those questions I end up deleting because they're either inane or they're like, hey, let's get in touch, here's my email. And I'm like, I mean, even though I think some of them are genuine, you know, some people want to work together, or some people want to give me something, like something that they made, you know, I think it's cool, but at the same time, I'd rather not meet someone through the internet that way and give them my email, and because you
Sure.
never know what's going to happen with that. So
Right. Yeah, I remember you used to list those questions and answers a long time ago. I mean, maybe 15 years ago or so.
yeah, yeah.
I remember reading those. They were great.
The
I
thing is,
haven't read them in a while.
yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback on those, so that's why I decided to do it again. People like that, and usually the snarkier I am, the more
Yep.
people like them.
Yeah, myself included. Yeah, those are good. That show you were just talking about, that like Bach solo thing,
Uh-huh.
you're doing with your friends. Is that something that's public, or is that just private between you and your friends?
It's just private. I
Cool.
mean, you know, we're just there's like me and 4 other musicians who talked about this.
Cool.
So we're just gonna have a Zoom,
Great.
you know, hang one night and do that. I mean, it's something. There was one night a couple weeks back I was practicing, and I just went on Instagram and went live just spontaneously and started improvising, and that was fun, and people seem to dig it. So I mean, it's possible I could end up, if I feel comfortable enough, making that a public performance at some point, or
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Sure. So this next question I have for you, I think you kind of already answered, but I'm curious if you want to talk about it a little more, which is, you know, it's kind of saying you're more on the paranoid side of things now, which I can relate with the pendulum swinging all over the place. I've definitely gone to both sides of that extreme and continue to swing.
Right.
But I wonder what's your current protocol now? Like, are you seeing friends at all? Like, do you go for walks with friends? Like, are you seeing anyone? Do you have any connection with people, or any
I've
porous boundaries anywhere where you can still hang?
um I've been basically hanging with one friend occasionally.
Yeah.
There's a couple people I talk to, or text at least
Right.
daily, and you know, we've been doing Zoom hangs occasionally. But there is one friend who I've gone on some walks with her, and I live kind of between Prospect Park and Greenwood Cemetery, which Greenwood Cemetery, I don't know if you've ever been there in Brooklyn, but it's amazing. It's huge,
Mm.
and it's really beautiful. There's a lot of cherry blossoms, and there's a couple lakes there, and it's usually pretty quiet, you know, um, and you know, it's very obviously peaceful place. So occasionally I've gone on walks with her. So she lives in Queens, so she'll drive here in a car, and then, you know, put on her mask, I'll put on my mask, and we, you know,
Cool.
walk to the cemetery and keep our distance and all that. So um I mean, you know, she suggested going for a drive to another part of the city recently, and I thought, you know, I'm not super comfortable with being in a car with anyone right now. You
Right.
know, which I might be being overly cautious, but at the same time, you know, I don't, I don't see any backlash to being overcautious. You know, I'd
Right.
rather be that now and be able to hang later for
Right.
real, you know.
Right. Right.
I mean, it doesn't help that I've been reading The Plague by Camus, which I read, you know, probably I read in college or something, and I decided it's still on my shelf, and I decided, man, I think I'm going to read this. And
Yeah,
actually, it's kind of amazing how spot on it is.
I'm
It's,
sure.
you know, just in terms of um, human interaction and the way we're behaving, and that like what we're talking about, swinging between being skeptical and paranoid. I mean, it's all there in that book that was written in 1947,
Right.
it's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Are you, besides that book, are you taking in any like news right now, or you try to make boundaries with that, or where are you getting information, if any?
Usually the first thing I do in the morning when I'm having eaten my oatmeal is I log on to the Guardian, which is my homepage.
Yeah.
So I read, I read through the headlines. I choose a few articles. I also get like an update from the New York Times. I get an email from that every day, but I definitely have noticed that if occasionally I take maybe 1 or 2 days off from paying attention to any news at all, I feel better.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
I'm trying to stay informed and know what's going on, and
Yep.
um, even about simple things, and so, but at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the news that is just either so depressing or absurd that I have a hard time. And there's not really, aside from hopefully being able to vote at some point, there's not really much we can do.
Yeah.
I get a little bit annoyed when I look at Twitter and I see people who have these very passionate tweets about their beliefs. And how this has got to stop, and this is ridiculous, but okay, so then what?
Yeah.
um
This stopping being the lockdown? What's the
well, just as an example, but just
sure.
or
Yeah, just choose your own gripe.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like who's running the government, or who's
Yeah.
in charge, or whatever laws are being passed or not passed. But I mean, my point is just sending a passionate tweet about it isn't going to do anything. I mean, you might get like 50,000 likes, but and I'm not saying, I don't know. Of course, everyone has a right to express their opinion. That's kind of what 90% of Twitter is. But at the same time, I get annoyed just by seeing stuff like that because, I mean, yes, I can become more of an activist, and I can, try and spend more time on that stuff, which I don't need a tweet to like guide me towards. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like shouting your belief out to the world isn't necessarily going to do anything except annoy me.
Noted. So, man, I'm happy to see and to also hear that you are healthy and taking good care of yourself and exercising for 20 minutes a day. I mean, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And so that's nice. And I wonder if you feel like sharing, like how are just the people you don't have to get too specific, especially if you don't want, but like how are your friends doing? I know New York is obviously a hot spot, and like how's your community, and how's your family, and how's everyone doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix.
Sure.
My parents are in California, and they're elderly. They're both in their mid 80s, and
Yeah.
my dad has some health issues that he had for a while, and so of course I'm worried about them.
Yeah.
My mom's in pretty good shape, and so they're together, and so she's taking care of him, and that's all good. And I have a brother nearby them, and an older niece who's also not too far away, so they're all good. And my sister and her family are good. They're all of those people are in California. My friends here in New York and different parts of the world are, I would say in New York, I probably know more people I know some people are struggling a little bit with the situation, and
Yeah.
so I just feel it's important reach out to those people, if not daily, then at least multiple times a week, and just,
Right.
see what's going on, and
Nice.
try to encourage people to not wither away, because it's very easy to do.
Totally.
Um, uh, I was just thinking about what's going to happen, like the next phase, when if things get back to normal, which it seems like they probably will, which is also, that's a whole nother topic. Like,
Totally. Yeah.
But like that adjustment period into that is going to be difficult. I was thinking about how, like, if you're used to going to the gym every day or every other day, and then you stop going to the gym for whatever reason, you get sick or you take a vacation or something, and then when you go back, we all know how difficult it is to get back into that routine.
Right.
Because you basically have to start from ground zero again.
Right.
You can't do the regiment that you had the energy for before, like physically or mentally. You don't.
Yeah.
Mentally, especially, you don't want to, because it's going to hurt. And so, I was just thinking about, even with people going back to their jobs and their daily routines and getting up in the morning, like, man, who's going to have the motivation for that to kick in right away? It's going to be
right.
It's going to have to be baby steps, So
Yeah.
anyway, I feel that's probably true of a lot of, like, I know a lot of musicians who have zero work.
Right.
I have pretty much zero work right now.
Right.
Luckily I'm okay, because I did a bunch of shows in February, and that kind of helped out a lot. So, but yeah, it's a mix,
Yeah. That definitely leads right into my next question for you. I've known you as, I think I met you about 20 years ago, and I've known you as a very busy guy and very, like, scheduled and regiment, or, my projection onto you. Like, even when I met you back in 2000, I remember that you have just always, you always had a calendar. You were always like, there was days like way in the future that you couldn't do. You booked up your calendar.
Right.
And you were, playing lots of concerts and doing all types of recordings and doing all types of tours, you've been doing that for a long time. And I wonder if you want to talk about, like, what was planned, and what has been impacted in your calendar.
Yeah.
What is that like with that new?
Yeah, that's also kind of a mixed thing. I mean, I had I guess I think the first thing that got canceled was I was supposed to play at the Village Vanguard for a week with Chris Davis, this piano player who's great. She put out a new record last year, or actually, I think it came out early this year, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she's a great pianist and one of my favorite musicians, and she had a week at the Vanguard with this band. It was kind of going to be a mix. I think every night was maybe going to be different. That obviously got canceled. And then I was supposed to go to Europe right after that with Dan Weiss's band Stair Baby.
Yep.
That got canceled. And then a big tour with Buzz Osborne.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, who we put out we recorded this duo record that the release date just got pushed back for financial reasons, but
because of COVID impacting the finances.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because of, like, people not, at the label and distribution plant not being able to, do their jobs, basically.
Right.
So
distributing vinyl.
It's I think it's going to be on multiple mediums,
cool.
Vinyl and CD.
Great.
And so that was a 2-month tour, and the first half of it got canceled. they haven't officially canceled June yet, but it's likely that's going to happen.
Is it America?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all across the U.S. for like, yeah, almost 2 months, I think. I was gonna
Sounds like a Melvin style tour.
Yeah, totally. It's classic Buzz, like hit the ground running, man. And
Nice.
but yeah, I was gonna fly out to LA in mid-May and start rehearsing with him. And you know, so basically, and then and then I think also after that, I was gonna go to Europe with John Zorn and also Chris Davis, a couple different things, and those all got postponed until, I mean, the Zorn thing, I think he postponed until 2022 or something, just to be safe.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So
well, I think that's, maybe wise.
But
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So it was crazy for me to actually go to my calendar. I still have I still use paper calendar because I'm old fashioned, and I had to go back with an eraser and
oh, fuck.
And oh wow, May is suddenly there's nothing in May. It's like completely blank. I mean, this is May for you. There's nothing going on. I've got I'm giving a bass lesson on Zoom on Saturday. That's it.
Good.
But I mean, there is a positive side to this, which is I got a grant a couple of years ago to write and record this new music, and I keep putting it off because I've been so busy doing other things. I have a hard time saying no to projects, or especially if someone offers me work, like, hey, if there's a band I play in and they say, hey, we got this tour in Europe, I'm gonna say, if I'm free, I'm gonna say yes, because number one, that's what I do and it's gonna be fun, and and it's how I make money. So but all of those things, all those gigs, anything that I say yes to takes time away from me writing, and so now, aside from practicing and exercising a little bit and reading, which is also something that I have been putting off over the years, I need to kick in to a writing mode and write this record. I mean, I don't know when we're going to be able to get together and rehearse and record, but the most important thing is that I write the music. And so right now I've got at least a month ahead of me of free time to do that. And so I think I should not squander that time. And, it's going to take me, I haven't even jumped into thinking about it yet, but it's going to take me probably a week to organize my thoughts and my scraps of music and stuff that I've already written or things that I've discarded and want to sort of cannibalize. And before I really start putting the new thing together and figuring out what it is. And I'm excited to be able to do that and not have any interruptions,
Right. Is this trio convulsant?
It is. It's trio convulsant with a chamber quartet.
Oh, were you calling that secret quartet?
No, well,
something else.
I did a performance in 2015, I think, where I wrote all this music then. It was trio convulsant avec de corde, which is with strings.
Yep.
So it was a string quartet, and they were called the Secret Quartet.
Right.
But after I wrote all that music, I wasn't totally happy with all of it. Actually, I wasn't happy with about 90% of it, just basically with what I wrote. I just felt like it was kind of an experiment that didn't work for me, and had nothing to do with the players. It was just my writing, and so I decided to scrap it and start from scratch. Back to the drawing board, as they say. So I changed the quartet to 2 strings and 2 wind instruments. So it's going to be cello, viola, flute, and clarinet, with also bass clarinet and alto flute, as instruments that they'll double on. So I'm not sure what it's going to be trio convulsant of X something. I'm not sure what,
Right.
but
Sweet.
but yeah, that's what that's my next writing endeavor.
Nice. Is there a deadline for that grant or anything like that?
There's not, but there's not a specific deadline, but they have been asking every 6 months. I have to send in a report, and I keep sending a report saying that I haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
So,
Well, honesty is the best policy.
yeah. But they did the last time I did that, they kind of said, hey, they just kind of nudged me a little bit. They're
Cool.
they're really cool, and they're totally understand that I'm a working musician. They understand my situation. So,
Right.
and a lot of the people I work with are grantees from them. So it's kind of their fault that I'm so busy anyway.
Right.
So, it's my way I look at it. But yeah, now, I don't really have those excuses. So I need to take advantage of that and not, like I said, not wither away,
Right.
That grant also included this duo project I have called Sperm Church.
Yeah. Is that a Seabrook?
No, it's with a Dutch electronic musician.
Oh, right, okay.
And that record has actually got finished. So we finished mixing it in February, and I have to have it mastered and figure out what I'm going to do with it. But a small portion of that grant I got went to that project. So I didn't, I haven't been totally sitting on my ass.
I'm sure. People have, obviously people have venues down there where you are in New York, and friends of yours and people that I know. I'm sure you know a lot more because you're constantly playing them, but like the Owl and so many others. But what do you have like a pulse on any of that? Like how?
Yeah.
How's that doing?
All those places are struggling. I've actually, I've actually donated a little bit to Union Pool, New Blue, and Barbez. That are all places that I, inhabit occasionally and play at and go see music at, and all those places are struggling because they have employees and nobody can work. So I'm sure the Owl is in a similar, or the Owl Parlor is in a similar situation. And, unfortunately, and this goes back to this touring thing I was talking about, whether I'm going to be able to play in June or not, which is unlikely, but, concerts and gatherings with a lot of people are probably going to be the last thing to be allowed, understandably. So, who wants to be in a crowded room with a bunch of sweaty people? So, chanting and, spilling their beers everywhere. And so, that was, it kind of makes you appreciate it now.
I know, man.
But, all those venues are, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be talking about it, but I think they're, they're struggling like any other small business.Ey're dependent. Right. Those places are usually struggling anyway, even when they're packed. They're barely making. So.
Kind of like musicians.
Totally. Right. Yeah. Just like what do you call it? Hand to mouth or whatever. It's like living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. Now, these next kind of questions, or this question I have, not totally sure how to phrase it, but a lot of people left New York, as you know, or people I saw and heard about leaving New York. And I wonder, I know you have family out in California. Like what made you choose to stay? And I just want to be totally clear. I think it's awesome that you stayed. And I just wonder, like, yeah, what made you choose to stay when you do have, or actually, I don't know your personal situation, but you potentially have an out to go somewhere else and get out of there.
Yeah, and I've actually been offered by friends in California and to come out there, or I mean, I could go stay at my parents anytime I want, and which I've considered, just to like, give my mom a hand, some help with my dad, and also, they live in Northern California in a fairly isolated area, which is, I mean, everyone seems to be taking precautions there, but they have a very low number of cases of the virus, and it's partly because they are naturally isolated by the redwood forest. But I mean, I guess the main reason I chose to stay here is that I own my house, fortunately, and all my stuff is here, and my base and all my records and all my books, and I want to be here to take care of all that, so I mean, when I was in Europe, I was considering, I was in Europe at the end of February. Is that true? Is that when I was there? Wait, it's already, I don't even know what month it is. It's April already. I know I was there until almost the end of March, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I think the
You were
lockdown
coming back to New York from Europe in late March?
on the 24th of March, I came back.
That must have been a mess.
It was weird. It was super weird. I mean, I flew out of Amsterdam and the airport was a ghost town. And
oh my God.
I mean, I have to say, getting back into the US was like, customs was easy.
Clearly.
No, it was, I was wondering if what was going to happen was everyone going to get, shoved into a room together or something. And, we got off the plane and they took our temperatures
oh, wow. They did that.
I had to fill out one extra form.
Whoa.
Said I hadn't experienced a fever or symptoms or something like that. But, and then I walked out and I got my luggage and I got into a cab and came home, and of course I was wearing a mask the whole time. I wore a mask the whole flight. I mean, the worst thing about that trip was, well, I got to the airport and like I said, it was a ghost town. The gate agents were shielded off with huge plastic sheets, and almost everything was closed. So it was really difficult to find food. And then we got on the plane and they had kept the flight was the plane was probably like only a third full. They had purposely put an empty seat between everyone. And then once we took off, there was actually, I ended up getting a whole row to myself, which was great. But they kept making this announcement about, make sure you distance yourself from everyone else, but it's impossible on an airplane. I mean,
you're in a plane.
Yeah, people are walking up and down right next to you, and I'm giving everyone the stink eye, and so I didn't feel, it was a little bit nerve wracking, but the worst thing about it was we got on the plane and sat on the tarmac for, I think, 5 hours because of a maintenance problem. And then they eventually canceled the flight. We all had to get off the plane and wait for another one. So that was a serious drag, which had nothing to do with the virus. But and then, I wasn't sure what I was going to see in New York. That was my whole point bringing this up. Like, I considered, like, well, what if I just stay in Europe? I have friends there. I had a suitcase, I didn't have an instrument or anything, but I could have probably dealt with that somehow, but basically I just wanted to get back to my stuff,
right,
and my home, and and do what I'm doing now, which is try to get into some sort of routine with the palace that I've built with, all my detritus.
Cool, man. I wonder if this is something that's going on a lot in my head, just as, where I am here in Massachusetts and the world.
Yeah.
I wonder what you're thinking about just for musicians in general. Basically, like, are you scared for the fate of musicians, and does this alter your future in terms of like your mindset moving forward? Like, let's say, I don't know if you think like this, but like your 1 year plan or your 2 year plan or your 5 year plan, does this alter how you're thinking about this? Or is it like, you know what, I'm going to take a break, and as soon as I can get back to it, I'm just going to get back to it?
Well, it's funny. I'm 52 years old now, believe it or not, and I have, for a few years, I've been considering my next step, and that part of that consideration is my family. The wanting to spend more time with my parents, and also the fact that I've been in New York for 20 years now. Actually, wow, this is this is right around. I think I moved to New York in the summer of 2000. So yeah, 20
Yep.
years I've been here, and I'm kind of starting to think that's a pretty good run. And I honestly, I don't really work that much in New York. Most of the work I do is touring, going to other places. I do some recording here in New York. I still work with Zorn quite a bit, record with him and other bands. But I also feel like I could live anywhere and still do all of those things. And so I've been actually, for a while, I've been considering moving back to California, but I'm not exactly sure where, and I'm not exactly sure what I would do there. I've thought about maybe getting like a teaching job or something.
In California?
Yeah.
Like close up north towards your parents, or?
I'm not sure. I don't want to go too far north of San Francisco because.
Right. Oh yeah, you lived in SF for a while, right?
I did, yeah. And I don't think I'd want to live back in San Francisco. I have friends who live in Oakland.
Yeah.
And I've also thought about more central California, maybe somewhere between LA and San Francisco.
Whoa, I bet there's some nice spots in there.
Yeah. Of course, now I have to think about fires, but
yeah, and no drinking water.
Yeah. But I've been, to answer your question, this situation with this virus hasn't really changed that mindset. If anything, it's kind of like nudged it a little bit.
Okay. Like that was already going on for you.
Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Man, how can people support you and or your friends right now? Is there anything that people can do to be supportive of what you're doing, what your community is doing?
That's a good question. I mean, I hate to sound like I'm plugging a product again.
No, this is honestly, man, I want that. Or I think you should.
I mean, I guess it's, buying music,
Right.
instead of just, downloading stuff for free or streaming. I mean, I'll be honest, I use Spotify all the time. I think it's a really good tool, especially for research.
Right.
But when I come across something that I really like, I try to remind myself to actually buy it. For instance, Fiona Apple's new record just came out, and I
saw it. Oh, really? I haven't heard it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's totally
nice.
weird. It's it's really great. I'm a huge fan of hers anyway.
Yeah, me too.
But you know, I listened to it on Spotify a couple times, and I'm like, man, I got to buy this record, you know, because
Right.
first of all, I want to have it on my iPod so I can travel with it, you know, and
Yeah.
um,
And not get calls while you're listening to it.
yeah, yeah. But also,
That's awesome. You still have an iPod.
yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Same one I've had forever. I have
Oh,
no
those are
music
the
on my phone.
best.
I have zero music on my phone.
Wow. Just Spotify.
Yeah, but usually I listen to Spotify on my desktop at home.
Oh, okay. Cool.
You know, which is connected to some good speakers, you know, and
Wow, man, I'm jealous of that iPod. That sounds so nice.
um, and so yeah.
So where did you buy her record?
Well, I haven't yet, but I'm going
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's the point. Like I'm gonna,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I like the I have reasons for myself to buy it, but also I want to support her, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and any other, I mean, she's kind of well, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'm sure that there are a lot of musicians I know who are in a much more dire financial situation, you know, and so
Yeah.
purchasing their stuff,
Right.
you know, especially if it's like a real, like a physical copy, you know, purchasing a CD or vinyl, I think I really
Yeah.
support,
Mm.
you know, so that's always good. You know, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, musicians don't have a ton of options right now. You know, I
Right.
mean, a lot of people are, you know, giving lessons online.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Encourage young people to take up an instrument or
Right.
something. I don't know. Yeah, hard to
Yeah.
say.
Where can people buy your music? On trevordunn.net? Are
Yeah,
there other
yeah,
places?
yeah.
Bandcamp or something?
Yeah, it's honestly there's only a couple things that I sell myself on there, but there are links to almost everything. Like, you know, all the stuff I'm on, all the Zorn stuff I'm on is on Zodic, so there's a link to
Mm-hmm.
where to buy it at Zodic, and the stuff like Endangered Blood, that quartet I'm playing is on Chris Speed's label Skirl Records. Um, there's a couple things you can buy directly from me, and there's a link to PayPal me, and I honestly
Great.
I package it myself and I go to the post office, and you know,
Sweet.
so I still like doing that. I've been doing that for years, and I still
Mm.
like there's a grassroots quality to that I really like, you know.
Yeah. Are you available for teaching right now, like on Zoom? Can people get in touch with you and take an upright bass lesson or electric bass? Is that something you're doing?
I haven't really promoted that. I mean, I will if it comes up. Usually, my approach to teaching lessons is like if people know me and they get a hold of me, then
Yeah.
you know, and want a lesson, I'll do that. But I don't. I'm usually so busy doing other stuff that I don't have a
Yeah.
lot of time for it. But I
Sure.
will, you know, do it if people ask. Um, so
Can they get in touch with you through your website?
um,
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
that's a good question.
Or Instagram, just DM you?
Yeah. People can DM me. Also, like I have this Q&A thing on
Oh,
the
yeah.
website that I was talking about. And, you know, if someone wants to take a lesson, if I get the sense that they're serious, I'll reach
Sure.
out to them, you know. But I don't like advertising my
Right.
contact information. I do have to be a little cautious with that because I've had some bad experiences,
I'm
not
sure.
because I'm so famous, but because I know people who are more famous than me and play music with them. So I get a lot of the backlash from that.
Yeah, yeah. Are you available? I asked this because I know some people that are doing this. They have like a little home recording setup, and people kind of send them some tracks, and they can
Yeah,
overdub. And are you available for like, remote recording projects?
absolutely. Yeah. And I've been doing a little bit of that. Actually, that's something I have to do this weekend. Brian Chase, the drummer, has his own label, and
Yeah.
he's asking some musicians he's going to put out these kind of like compilations, and the first one I think he's doing is all centered around bass players. So he asked me and 3 other bass players to record something at home. So I'm still not sure what I'm going to do, but yeah, I have capabilities of recording stuff here at home, and I do a lot of my own. I record multiple instruments here at home.
Great.
Guitar, keyboards, bass, all kinds of stuff, vocals.
Yeah.
So that's any kind of thing like that I can do and happy to do.
Great. Last question, and maybe I gotta just cross it off and go right to your website, because it sounds like you're updating it today. But I was wondering if you could impart a book and some watching material, maybe a movie and some music you're listening to, maybe even just one of each or as much as you want. Of what have you been getting into?
Sure. I did actually just last night. I updated that part of my site, but actually there's always more. So I'll just name a couple.
Great.
I've been thinking about. I've been listening to. Well, first of all, I've been kind of obsessed with this band Crowded House lately.
Okay.
Which they had a hit. They're an Australian band from like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
They had a hit, I think in the 80s that I'm sure you've heard.
I was gonna say, I'm like, yeah, go.
Yeah, hey now, don't dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's classic. And
classic.
I was hanging out with a friend not too long ago, and we were for some reason we started talking about that song, and we're like, yeah, that's a cool song. What band is that? And then I kind of had a different, when the name Crowded House came up, I had a different image in my head of what they were, who they are, and then I kind of dove into them. Nice. And got totally obsessed. I'm really into this record called Time on Earth right now. Okay. It's one of these records that every once in a while I get into a record that I just can't stop. I just keep putting it on. I'll wake up with a different song in my head from that record. I'm like, man, I got to hear that again. I'll listen to the whole record again, So I've been really into that, and they don't have that. Their discography is not that big, and to be honest, I haven't even got into all of their records yet. But there are 2 or 3 that I really like. And then I've been listening. Actually, you can see it right there. I've been listening to Alban Berg, the German composer.
What's the first name on that?
Alban, Alban. I have his complete works on vinyl. Oh, is that coming out backwards, or can you?
No,
see
it's perfect.
Okay, cool.
Gorgeous title. Gorgeous cover.
This piece in particular, 3 pieces for orchestra, is something I've been checking out.
Wow.
And I have a score for it, and so that's something I'm going to actually do this week. Is kind of I love looking at scores while I'm listening to classical pieces and studying what's going on. So that's some music I've been listening to. I mentioned this before, and it's also on my website. I've been reading The Plague by Camus.
Nice light reading.
Yeah. So, but I highly recommend it. It's really, he's pretty dark, and it's, obviously it's, existential philosophy. There's a lot of metaphor going on, but it's kind of amazing how relevant it is now, and so there's another book. I have a bunch of books in my house that I have never read, because
me too.
I have a habit of buying stuff without, before I have the time to get into it. But the other day I've kind of been, this is also dark, I guess, if you want to think of it that way, but I've been thinking about death a lot, and for various reasons. And I picked up this book. I don't know when I got this book. It's called Unfinished Symphonies.
Mm.
It's by a woman named what is her first name? Rosemary Brown. I haven't looked at this book yet. It was written in 1971, and it has something to do with the composer's list and Chopin.
Wow.
And there's, for instance, there's one of the chapters is called Life After Death. And one of the chapters is called Healing, and one's called The Evidence. I have no idea what this book is about, but it intrigues me. So
Yeah.
um,
Some heavy hitters in there.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything light I've read recently.
Oh, we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but not needing it. Just whatever's up.
Yeah. And then in terms of film, I haven't really watched too many films
Or TV.
in the past few weeks, but I have been into this series on Netflix.
There we go. Called what?
Ozark.
Oh, okay. I haven't checked that out yet.
It's kind of the third season just started, and I'm just catching up. I'm like halfway through the second season, but
Yeah.
it's got something a little bit in common with Breaking Bad, except that it takes place in the South.
Mm.
So, instead of like urban Baltimore, you've got, hillbillies in Missouri.
Wow.
So it's pretty intense and it's kind of violent. But I've been digging it. It's Justin Bateman, who's like, he's great, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said actually. He's a great actor.
Yeah, man. Dude, thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks for taking time, and I hope I get to see you in your part of the hood sometime really soon.
Yeah, likewise.
Get something.
And man, stay healthy, keep your mind and body like active, and don't wither away.
Yeah. And people, anyone watching or listening can get in touch with you at Trevor Dunn. That's DUNN.net. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then Dunatov is your Instagram, right?
Yeah. That Twitter and Instagram, same handle, Dunnertov.
Okay. So get in touch if they want some lessons or recording.
Yeah. But don't bother me if you just want to ask me a stupid question.
Yeah, we'll weed you out.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much. And be well. Look forward to talking to you soon, man.
Likewise, Andrew.
All right. Bye.
All right. See ya.